And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore podcast, where we never sit out. I'm your host, Matthew Dawson, and joining me again today's co-host, C to the D, Chris Dawson. What is up? Coming off a heater of a week with the picks. A heater of a week. Gosh, we said it here on this show. If you watched the show earlier this week, the previews to these games, we said it. Do not sleep on this week of football because that is the second that happens, a bunch of wild, crazy stuff is going to happen. That's what's going to happen. And guess what? Lots of stuff happened. I'll get into it a little bit more, but I mean, how was your weekend?
It was fantastic. College football. I mean, everyone said, like we talked about in the previews, we talked about just right now, it was going to be a sleeper week. It was not going to be fun, whatever. No, you had some classic games. You had a 61-yard walk-off field goal, which we'll get into. You have Bama has three quarterbacks playing this year, and that they got worse than Jalen Milroe. I mean, they needed a rain delay, whatever, to kind of bail him out and get reset for him. But Georgia, all of a sudden you look up and Georgia's down, and then boom, right away they turned on and they won two, and then they won by 10 points. But and then what? Florida State. You tell me what happened to Florida State and Boston College? What? Why was that game so close?
Explosive plays. It was, if they were to play that game again, dude, it's not close. I promise you. Like, there were, like, I think it was 13 or 14 plays of Boston College's accounted for like 300 of their yards. Like, it was very explosive play dependent, and that's what you need to do to like compete in those games, right? Like, if you're Boston College, first of all, also Tommy Castellanos. I mean, wow, he actually played really, really well. That dude was running around low key for his life, but also, like, if that guy was on a legit Power Five team, I think he'd give some people the absolute heebie-jeebies. Like, he just gave Florida State the heebie-jeebies. I know UCF is kind of missing him with John Rice Plumlee out, but hey, Timmy McClain, you UCF fans, I know you guys were excited to see him for a while now, and he did okay. He was fine. I think you guys might be okay there without John Rice Plumlee for the time being. Um, but yeah, so FSU was in a scare. Bama, you said that. I mean, I don't know if it was just like Nick Saban was like trying to prove a point to Tommy Rees that, hey, look, it doesn't matter what quarterback you're going to throw out there. You have to fix something in this offense because it's not working. Um, or maybe he was trying to prove to him that Jalen Milroe is the guy. And he's like, all right, Tommy, you're going to ride with your boys and you're going to die with your boys. All right. So, because obviously Tommy Rees is a big fan of Tyler Buchner, which is confusing, I think, to the masses why that's the case. But hey, we saw he stinks. So that's the end of that. Tyler Buchner stinks. Ty Simpson also stinks. Joe Moreau has honestly looked the best of any of those quarterbacks, so I would not be surprised to see him march back out this week. Um, but oh well, Bama's got
They
a
gotta
lot of
get
other
it.
things to worry about too. Their
They gotta
offensive
get it
line.
figured out. But I mean, they're going right into SEC play now. It's not gonna get. I mean, we know, and you and I, especially after this weekend, aren't particularly high on the SEC West. In terms of like how elite we thought it was going to be, but it's still the SEC West. The talent's there, and nobody's elite in terms of like anybody can win any game. So Bama's got to get their stuff figured out. They get Ole Miss this week at home, but
Not an easy
oof,
game, by the way.
no,
Of the SEC West teams, I mean, they haven't looked amazing, right? But they've looked better than the rest of the SEC West teams, maybe minus LSU these last couple of weeks after the Florida State
they
bounce
probably have the
back.
best win. They probably have the best win out of anybody in the SEC West
That
at
is
Tulane,
not false at all. It's not
which is
false.
crazy. Which is
Yeah.
crazy.
And Auburn, Bama has to go to Auburn this year, right? They got to go to Jordan Hare. Am I
To
correct in that?
Auburn at Kentucky, which should be win, but obviously at A&M, I know you know that, and then
But
at
I don't
Mississippi
know.
State.
Kentucky's a 3-0 SEC team with maybe not some great wins, but I don't know, man. Like, you would think, like, in the trenches where you're like, oh, Bama's got them dominated. I don't know if that's going to be the case this year.
Well,
So,
hopefully by week 11 they'll figure their stuff out. You would hope, but
yeah. But, I mean, Caden Proctor does not look great at all. So, I'm get burned a couple times. Uh, but, yeah. Anyways, moving on. Georgia also looked vulnerable. Now, I'm going to say this, and I didn't think I was going to end up saying it this year. I didn't anticipate saying this sentence, but Spencer Rattler is everything to that team, and he is balled out to the best that he could possibly ball out with the talent that is around him. He is the only reason that they gave Georgia a scare in there. He is the only reason they have any sort of offensive production. He is running for his life, making big time throws. I've been very impressed with Spencer Rattler so far. Did I say Sanders? I meant to say Spencer Rattler, but either way, holy cow. Look, Georgia figured it out, and look, they're kind of blipping right now. But honestly, I think it's good for this Georgia team to kind of experience that a little bit early on, get those kinks out of the way. So then when they get into these more challenging games, that they're not going to be so taken. They're going to know what to do to adjust. They're going to know what's going on. Ohio beat
We
Iowa State. Pff, yikes! I don't think either team looked great, but I think Ohio's defense has shown up this year. You saw it against
the
FAU.
Mac, the
Dude,
Mac
the
did
MAC
his
in
thing this
general,
week.
Bowling Green giving Michigan a little scaresy doozy there at halftime. How about? I mean, Toledo lost, but Ohio beating Iowa State. Trying to think. Oh,
Toledo
Miami,
won.
Ohio
Toledo
beat.
won.
What's the one?
Yeah, they beat San Jose State.
That's right. They were down early though, right?
Mm.
Okay, maybe that's what it was. Then also Miami, Ohio beating Cincinnati. So the MAC might be a conference to watch out for betting purposes. I have my eyes on them very closely. I'm starting to like what I'm seeing over there in the Mid American. So,
Eastern
but yeah,
Michigan beat a UMass team that's not terrible.
yeah,
Not terrible.
yeah. And then Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy, I love you, man, but just pick a guy at quarterback. Just pick one guy and just play football with your quarterback. Let him get into a rhythm. You you can't do anything if you're just like Oklahoma State played three quarterbacks yesterday. That number three is greater than the number of drives that they had that went into South Alabama territory yesterday, as we're recording this on Sunday. That is wild. That's wild. And I think just stick with the guy. I don't know if it's Rangel. I don't know if it's Alan Bowman. It's not Gunnar Gundy for sure. I know that after watching some of that. I don't know. South Alabama's a good team, but come on, Oklahoma State. I bet your over win total 6.5, and I was expecting to see Alan Bowman or Rangel in there. So I don't know, but those are some of the bigger games this week that were some surprising results. But we're going to specifically talk about these games that we got into on our previews. We previewed 9 games. Look, I was picking winners. I was not picking them. I wasn't picking the spreads though very well. You on the other hand did a little bit of both. You on the other hand did a little bit of both. 6-3 against the spread this week. That's solid. Puts you back to 10-10. I'm in the hole right now. I got to climb out of there. 7-13-1. I mean, and then I would have said like, oh, at least I have Dawson's Diner. But this week took some L's. What's nice though is that in the summer I put a double unit on Washington -11, so the hurt actually wasn't that bad. But for the purposes of the show, counting it as one unit. So did go down this week, but I feel pretty good. Clemson FAU. Look, there comes a point too when FAU's offense was so bad that Clemson was getting the ball like on the 45, 50-yard line. I mean, how many picks is Casey Thompson going to throw? How many? How many is he going to throw? Threw a pick six on the first possession of the game, and I'm like, okay, well, actually, this might be a problem. This might be a problem. So, and that hit like really late too. Like there was still a chance, but Kansas State first half. We'll talk about that game a little bit more later, but explosive plays. If I was to do it again, I'd bet it again for sure. So I have no problems. The only one that like I was really confused about was Kansas in a close game with Nevada. I know they're on the road. It was a really late game, battling some like injuries. All those guys ended up playing though that had injuries, but just a weird game. Just a weird game. So I don't know. Like I feel like if I was to have this slate again, I would take all of these games again, right? Except the one regret I have is not actually betting for moving on West Virginia, man. Not moving on. I wanted to get him at +1. It moved to even, and I'm like, and I hesitated, and then all of a sudden it's -3, and I'm like, what? So I regret that, but overall, good week for us. I did predict the Florida upset, which was kind of my highlight of the week. Other than
Credit
that,
to you. Credit to you.
it's a pretty mediocre week for me. Not gonna lie, pretty mediocre week for me. But how about we get into the actual games? First game we talked about is Colorado State at Colorado. You know what? And we talked about this before, and like, hey, let's talk about it. Right, game day is gonna be there. It is a rivalry game, right? This Colorado team is exciting to cover and talk about and watch. So, and I was gonna be watching it, so I'm like, oh, let's talk about it. This was a classic. This was a classic of a game. I mean, 27 penalties. What? That is called Chip E. Chippy. That's what this game was, and I loved it. It was everything that football is. Yeah, I mean, there might have been some hits, cheaper shots that maybe people don't necessarily agree with that were taken, but the entertainment level of this game was at a 100. It's at 100. Shedeur Sanders came up big late. Um, I thought Colorado State played a good football game. Man, I thought they played a good football team or a good football game. I think emotions were high. I think if they were to play this game again, I think Colorado. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what would happen if they play this game again. I thought Colorado just played so well, man. I know they're 0-2 to start the year, but I thought they played really, really, really well. And credit Colorado though. Travis Hunter goes down early, and they responded. They responded in the fourth quarter in overtime and getting it done late, finding a way to win a game. The over-under win total was at 3.5 this year, and they're already at 3 wins. And we're entering week 4. So really, really, really impressive from Deion Sanders. I know this game, people are like, oh, they stormed the field. That's 23.5-point favorites. Dog, do you really care? Like, do people actually care, like, what these schools do? Like, that's what it makes me upset that, like, yeah, it's like, oh, maybe they should like be like act like they've been there before. I'm like, dude, you are not a
They've
college
not been there
student.
before. They've not
They've
been there
not been
before
there
either.
before, and you are not a college student at this school, right? You like there's something like exciting about that, right? Gosh, these are the same people that say like traditions don't matter or make fun of other schools' traditions, right? Like those are kind of people that we do not need in college football. Storm the field if you want to storm the field, man. I don't care. I mean, look, it was a crazy game, and they won the football game against a rival. So on the field for all I care. I really don't care. But yeah, what did you think about this game?
Like you said, it was a great game. Obviously, I thought Colorado State played a hell of a game. Their game plan was awesome offensively. I mean, Torrey Horton, I mean, everybody got exposed to how good he really is. I know we've been talking about him since the summer. Louis Brown, another guy that I mean, I love that for a school like Colorado State, for some players like Colorado State, like Nicolosi, right, the backup quarterback, Dalen Holker, I think the tight end, right. I mean, those guys made some plays, and they got obviously on a national stage and with NIL and the NFL draft. I mean, they can capitalize on it themselves. I love that for them. Looking ahead, to be honest, we don't even know a ton about this Colorado State team because they've played 2 teams. They played Colorado, obviously, and they took them right to the wire. Should have won the game. I'm looking at second half miscues. You had the missed field goal out of halftime, and you had the turnover in red zone. You change that, 10 more points. That's a totally different game in the second half. Colorado State
Also,
probably continues to blow them out.
not going for 2 in that first overtime. I was shocked that they did not do that. I thought they were gonna do it. I'm like, win it, just win the ball game. But I don't know.
Yeah, but I think they generally thought they could go toe to toe with Colorado, which they did all game. The problem is that you give that offense 25 yards. That's all I need to get. I mean, for Colorado and Shedeur Sanders, that's pretty tough. I will say that 98-yard drive by Shedeur Sanders, I know it's gonna get overhyped because it was Shedeur Sanders and everything else, but that was awesome. That was incredibly impressive. You could see on the Colorado sideline and the players after they pinned him down the 2-yard line, they were already celebrating as if they had already won the game, and they didn't. But back to Colorado State about like what their team is, they could be damn good in the Mountain West this year. They played a Washington State team who me and you are both really, really high on, and a guy like Cameron Ward who put up numbers against them. And then their
And is
second game was
continuing to put
against
up numbers. He's
yep,
continuing to put up numbers.
and then Colorado at home, right? So like Colorado State, for all we know, could be a damn good Group of Five team, and just happened to catch Colorado on maybe a little bit of an off night. But if you're Colorado and you talk about what's next for them in the Pac-12, it doesn't get easier. It doesn't, right? It's Oregon this week, USC the
At
week after
Oregon.
that. Yeah, and you're probably going to be without your star Travis Hunter in both those games, and it's not like you're just losing. Oh, one shutdown corner is gone. Who cares? Obviously, it's a big deal in itself, but Travis Hunter plays both ways. That's going to be tough for them. And then I mean at Arizona State, I mean it's on the road in the Pac-12. Stanford, who's terrible, that should be a win. So they should definitely hit that over, but it's not going to get easy for them. But they got to start being able to run the ball. I know that's not in their DNA offensively, and they don't really care that they don't. But I mean, Dylan Edwards had some nice plays in the run game, which is good, and they needed that at times for sure. But Wilkerson, I mean, 4 carries for 6 yards. I'd like to see Sanders be utilized in the run game just a little bit at times. You know, Paul Reed, make him respect you because you know he's got the legs to do it. Obviously, his talent is his right arm and his brain is decision making. And you need him to be healthy because without him, this team is screwed. You talk about the value of Travis Hunter to this team. The value of Shedeur Sanders is 10 times that, just because of the nature of the position he plays and the bodies that they have around him. That everything rides on him, obviously, and he's done a fantastic job shouldering that load. Regardless, though, you're 3-0 in your Colorado. You win a rivalry game. Uh, you, Obviously, I think it's good that you kind of got tested. I don't think if you had gone in here, and obviously you were never going to overlook Oregon or USC, but it's a nice reality check to see like, okay, what do we actually have to work on and get better before we head into conference play? But yeah, hell of a game though. Hell of a game. Credit to Colorado State and credit to me for picking them to cover.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a credit to you. I'll ask you this though. Actually, I want to ask you, I'll tell you, if the Heisman vote was today, right, and they asked me to vote, my vote for Heisman would be Shedeur Sanders, my first
No
place.
doubt about it. That is the only correct answer. If you want to throw Michael Penix in there just because of the sheer numbers he's put up,
Mm-hmm.
fine. But you want to talk about on a national stage in clutch moments. Michael Penix hasn't been tested all year. Shedeur Sanders, you talk about Heisman moments. He's had like 3 of them. He has like 2 or 3
Yeah.
in each game. I mean, it is
Yeah.
ridiculous. And I can't wait to. I hope he stays healthy. I hope that O line keeps him hold up. He took some big shots again yesterday. Um, but yeah, I continue. We're gonna continue to monitor this team pretty closely all year because of just they're so fun to watch, and obviously they're gonna any given week they can beat anybody. But obviously, like you saw today, they're vulnerable at times. They're vulnerable at times because of the nature of the roster and the nature of their offense that they play. But yeah,
100%. Speaking of really good games, Missouri versus Kansas State was a phenomenal game. This is a really good game.
yeah,
And I'll get into it a little bit. You start out the game, right? I had some action on Kansas State first half -2.5. Awesome. Did not hit. But I'll tell you this, after that first drive, when Will Howard just went and just was seeding up everyone on Missouri, I'm like, whoa, okay, Will Howard's a dude. All right. He is a dude. And uh Missouri responded. And you know what they had that Kansas State really kind of lacked in this game? And that's sometimes the difference in these games was explosive plays. Are we going to rely on Brady Cook to make those plays all year? Maybe not. But Luther Burden was phenomenal. Luther Burden was fantastic. And they needed to get him going, and they need to keep him going. Right? Uh, Missouri had a tough time running the ball. Kansas State, 8 tackles for loss in that game. I don't think Kansas State's defense played all that bad. Again, explosive plays kind of killed them. I think if they were to play this game again, I would still take Kansas State and the
yep.
points. uh, but credit Missouri, man. They honestly look like the second best team in the SEC East right now. They actually have the best win in the SEC East. They actually might have the best win in the entire SEC right now. That's
That's
not
not a high
crazy.
bar to climb, but that's not to take any credit away from Missouri. I mean,
Yes.
this is an awesome win. I think you and I still did believe and still believe to a certain extent that Kansas State can make some noise in the Big 12 play. Especially, it was nice to see Brady Cook kind of put it all together. I mean, he ran the ball well early in the game. Um, Cody Schrader gave him a little help on the ground, but it was outside of one big play. He averaged, he had nine attempts for what is that, 22 yards. So that's not really what you're looking for. But like you said, Luther Burden was a stud. Theo Wees finally stepped up a little bit as well. Mookie Cooper, right, had a couple big explosive plays. Yeah, the guy. I was just waiting for Kansas State to just pull away, waiting for it, and it never happened. And they got in the fourth quarter up by 7, and it's like, okay, when are you going to make this a double-digit game? When are you going to really, really put this game away? And they didn't. They let Missouri hang around at home, always dangerous thing to do. And then a hell of a kick to that. I mean, the Missouri kicker, the guy that missed the kick against Auburn, that lost in the game last year, was a gimme. It was Blair Walsh in the playoffs against Seattle.
Nervous, baby.
Yeah, and he fucking nailed that SEC record, I believe. I mean, that was awesome. I'm really happy for Drinkowich, Brady Cook. Yeah, like you said, that they're right in it to be the second best team in the SEC East this year, because obviously it's not Tennessee and Florida. Even though they had a nice, impressive win, I don't trust them long term. Yes, it's anybody's game in the SEC East besides Georgia, but yeah, credit Missouri, credit Brady Cook. That it was a good crowd too there. It looked like a really nice crowd.
Yeah,
It always
but
is though.
there again, credit Missouri. I still also saw good things from Kansas State as well. I know Kansas State fans are probably hating hearing this because they lost to Missouri, which, by the way, the SEC needed this win. They did badly. But back to Kansas State, I think Will Howard was okay. Tough interception there, but I thought he was fine. And honestly, this still is probably if I was to power rate these guys, it'd probably be my third best team in the Big 12 still. So
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I'm not gonna drop them. I still thought they were fine defensively. They were okay. Like explosive plays. Sometimes teams hit explosive plays, and that's just what happens. Now, are there things you can do to limit those? For sure. Sometimes defenses don't have all those things figured out. By week 3, and then your Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year prediction. He went down with an injury. I think he came back in that game. I'm trying to remember if I remember seeing him, but early on he was having a gigantic impact on the game, and those couple drives, like those intermediate drives there, like at the end of the first quarter, end of the second quarter, they probably could have used him there. But needless to say, this was an awesome game. Again, just because Missouri's not ranked doesn't mean that it can't be a good game. I mean, the line was under a touchdown in Columbia. Gosh, Eli Drinkwitz needed that for sure. He needed that.
He did. I'll say this lastly about Kansas State in terms of game script. I mean, Will Howard had 39 pass attempts, and I think he's a really good player. You do too, but Kansas State's a team that likes to run the ball. They got 2 complimentary backs that are pretty darn good. Will Howard can scamper himself as well a little bit, being his big bodied. With that O line, you want to be able to run the ball and not have to rely on Will Howard 39 times dropping back. It wasn't his fault, I don't think at all. But I think if you had to go do that game over again, you would have liked to establish the run a little bit and stick with it. Especially in that fourth quarter. I mean, that's when you should lean on teams with that 10-point lead, and he didn't. Right, but so we'll see.
Yeah.
Or 7. I'm sorry, it was a 7-point lead. Whatever.
Yeah. Yep. Third quarter too, but fourth quarter. Yeah, but LSU at Mississippi State. We said it. What did we say? We said Mississippi State, if they decide to push the ball down the field, right, they can actually challenge this LSU secondary. But if they do that dink and dunk bull crap and get these linebackers involved in the pass game, it is going to be a lot of trouble for Mississippi State. And it was. And Malik Neighbors, holy cow, did he have just a monster game. Not even just monster game, monster first half. Yeah, 180 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first half. Jeez. Yeah, this LSU team is pretty pissed right now. I think they're pissed off after that week 1 game. I think we're gonna see him make moves from here on out. Jaden Daniels was pretty good. Uh, I still don't like he runs the ball still so much, and he loves just taking shots.
He
So we'll,
runs straight up, straight vertically. He is
yeah,
fully erect. I'm sorry.
he runs
Immunity. Immunity.
insanely vertically. It's ridiculous. And but gosh, man, Mississippi State, who I still think is a good team, and I still think they'll push some people in the SEC around. Uh, just Harold Perkins was a dog again. They finally used him a lot in pass rush, and he was involved in the passing game because if you're inherently throwing 4-yard passes, passing behind line of scrimmage, thinking and dunking, you're just not more talented. You're just not more athletic unless you're an offense like Kansas where it's just designed perfectly and it fits your personnel exactly correctly. It's hard to do that against a team that's just much more talented than you, right? We talked about Boston College having explosive plays, Missouri getting explosive plays, right? If you're an underdog in these games, right, and you notice a weakness in another team's secondary, if you can hit those explosive plays, you actually have a chance. You actually have a chance. Uh, I saw a tweet about this. What was it? Josh Pate, I think, was saying something like 11 straight plays of 0 or negative yards. Yikes. Or 8, whatever the number is. Too much, man. Too much. LSU played phenomenal. So I'm not going to take this away from LSU. It wasn't just Mississippi State. It wasn't just a poor coaching job by Mississippi State. This was a good game by LSU. This is a good game by LSU. So I'm still high on both of these teams. I am just a little bit concerned. I'm not going to hit the panic button on this offense yet for Mississippi State because they have been able to run the ball effectively against some teams. But I'm certainly on the concern side for Will Rogers because he has an actual chance to break a lot of records and because he has done a really good job for Mississippi State up until this point. I feels like he's trapped a little bit. What do you think?
Free Will Rogers, man. Free my boy. The thing is, and I'm going to reiterate a little bit of what you said, but more so to emphasize, because in a game like this, where LSU is a 10-point favorite on the road at Mississippi State, they are the more talented team, obviously. And if they wanted, they could determine how this game went, and they did. And that's so key for LSU fans looking forward to the rest of your schedule because everything is still in front of you. Obviously, you got blown out by Florida State in the second half. Who cares? Whatever. You can still move on. You can still run the table in the SEC, win the SEC championship, win the SEC championship game, and go to the playoffs. And everyone will forget about that Florida State game. And some of the keys, I'm looking back into my notes for the preview episode we did. Matt House, defense coordinator, can they figure it out? They did. They figured out how to use Harold Perkins as a breakout game as a candidate to actually like get pressure on the quarterback and affect things at the line of scrimmage instead of 7 yards deep in the pass game. I said you needed to start flat, you needed to start fast, and you couldn't come out flat on the road at Mississippi State. They did that, check. They couldn't let Will Rogers cook. They didn't, check. Partially due to his own coaching staff, but it's neither here nor there. LSU still executed the game plan that they wanted to. And then also, how does the offense do? It went flat at times against FSU in the second half. That could not happen against Mississippi State, and it didn't. All right, they put up 10 double-digit points in the first 3 quarters. It never got stagnant. Jaden Daniels was 30 of 34 with another 60 more yards on the ground. I mean, Malik Neighbors, like you said, went nuclear. He's on your fantasy team for our fantasy draft. We went position by position.
Yeah, 13 receptions,
conference.
239 yards, 2 tutters. Wow, and
that's crazy. It was like
180 of those yards were in the first half.
Yeah, they just went after him. It was nice to see him also get stuff through like big plays, explosive plays. It wasn't just like a bunch of yards to catch. It was Jaden Daniels down the seam, or it was him running a fade route, a slot fade. Like it was really nice to see Daniels push the ball down the field. And Marks from Mississippi State on the other side, I mean, he had one long run. Other than that, bottled up all day. And they just couldn't get anything going. It was very clunky. It was tough to see. And at times, Mississippi State's defense played well. They had some nice plays. They whatever, but when you're not getting help from your offense, I mean, the game got ugly, and it did. And it did. But LSU should feel really good about this win. This was a nice win. I wanted you to cover. I picked you to cover because I wanted you to show some things that you hadn't shown previously. You did, and you should feel very excited about that.
Yeah, I'll say I think people, if there was like a criticism of this, right? It's like, oh, LSU's run game relies too heavily on Jalen or Jaden Daniels. I think that's still kind of true, especially in this game. But also, Mississippi State is a really good defensive line, right? And the running backs,
Yep.
they 4 yards a carry. That's not great. That's not what you want to see, right? But I feel like they have multiple guys that they can rely on. They just haven't yet. So I think as you keep moving forward, right? I think there's some. I need to see this team rely more on their running backs. Not rely more, but I need to see more out of the running backs, getting more usage, right? Because what happens, like, if Jaden Daniels goes down, right? Granted, Nussmeier is awesome. We love
Love.
us some Nussmeier. We think he's awesome. He's a great quarterback. Got a cannon, absolute hose of an arm. But are they going to be able to run the ball if Jaden Daniels is not in the game? That's a question that has yet to be answered. Uh, so I'm very optimistic for this LSU team, but definitely if there was a criticism, it would be that for sure. And yes,
Yeah.
again, to reiterate, Mississippi State, throw the ball downfield. You have an okay quarterback, pretty decent weapons, a good offensive line, a running back. I mean, where's the play action deep shots? Where are they at? Where are they at? I don't know. I don't know.
I'll say this too. Lastly, about the running game, you bring that up. I think it's a very valid point. And it's not that we don't like when Jane Daniels runs the ball. Obviously, it helps the running game because of the numbers in the box, right? They talk about plus box, whatever, because he's an extra runner in the box. So yes, you have to get five offensive linemen and a running back, but also a quarterback that can take a defensive lineman or linebacker on his fake or just have to account for him, which is hard to do. Like you said, though, you would like to see him not have to carry the ball 15 times in a game like this. And I get it. That's part of your game plan, your offense, but he 49, 49 plays were put into his hands and we're like, you got to make a play. And he did today. Obviously, he was fantastic. But I do like to see get him more help because he's got the receivers to do it, obviously. Neighbors, BTJ, Hilton finally got some reps too today. But yeah, those running backs, Logan Diggs, Josh Williams, Noah Kane, you got to step it up. Got to step it up. John Emery hopefully getting back to himself, the 5-star billing. But yeah,
The crazy thing is, though, going back to Mississippi State's rushing attack, if you were telling me before the game that, oh, if Mark's averaged 9 yards a carry, I would have told you what. So
yeah,
Mississippi State blew out LSU. Well, I mean, if your box score sniping, you're like 8 for 75. What? Why did they stop going to him? Okay, like 69% nice of his runs or of his rushing yards came on one singular run. So they were not moving the ball at all, running the ball, passing the ball. They couldn't move the ball in general. Oh, skip one. Did I skip one? Yeah, sorry about that. All right. Let's talk about Penn State going to Champaign and getting it done. They got it done. Uh, but man, did Luke Altmaier help them out a lot. Jeez. I mean, this Illinois defense, I think, looked a lot better. And I talked about it here as well. Now, they ran the ball okay, right? But not as dominantly as they probably have run the ball against other teams, and they will run against other teams this year. I mean, Katron Allen, 13 carries, 54 yards, and a touchdown. Trying to pull up Nick Singleton's stats right here as well. Nick Singleton, 11 for 37. So they stopped him at the line. Like, Illinois' big boys matched up with Penn State's big boys. And I said that was going to be a key to the game. What I did not anticipate was Luke Altmaier just throwing 4 picks and just giving Penn State the ball. I mean, Illinois, like, now you can't just say, oh, if you take away 4 interceptions, right? Illinois could have won this game. But, like, Illinois, I don't regret taking Illinois plus 15. I would do it again in this game, in this situation at home. I think Luke Altmaier just kind of blew it. They put in Paddock. I mean, he did okay threw a touchdown, but I don't know. I don't know. What I did like though is that Reggie Love got some work in at running back, and I thought he did. I thought he did okay. I thought he did okay.
He had some nice runs. He had some really nice runs at times where I thought he was
Yeah,
physical.
I still think they were still a little stagnant in the running game. Like I think he had a couple, right? Like there were a lot of other runs where he just kind of got stuffed there. Yeah, but also credit Penn State's defense. A lot of those turnovers while Luke Altmaier was gifting, right? They were making plays. They were making plays. So, uh, yeah. While Illinois definitely blew this for sure, I'm not going to take that away from Penn State. They made plays. They made plays on the defensive side of the football. Drew Aller didn't really need to do a whole lot. Didn't do great actually, at all in any
Yeah.
way. But that's what's nice though about this Penn State team. It's like yeah, you can like Drew Aller. He's shown that he can play at a high level, but if he's not, right, and you're relying on this defense, like this defense is really freaking good, man. They're really good. Um, and you're not going to see a defensive line as good as this, really, for the rest of the way, probably for Penn State. I guess Michigan, Ohio State, kind of. I don't know.
Hopefully
We
Ohio
still haven't seen
State,
it.
if they pan
We
out.
if all these players kind of pan out, I guess. But uh, so this is a good win for Penn State on the road. It's always tough going on the road in the Big Ten for sure. Especially against a team with a defense like Illinois that played to probably the level that they're more capable of playing to. It's just so funny though. It's like the reason that Illinois was in these games before, right, was because Luke Altmaier was doing everything, right,
Yeah.
and their defense was lacking, and then now, right, Illinois dropped to 1-2, and today it was because Luke Altmaier was an absolute blunder. So, what are you gonna do? I still think Illinois can win some games in the Big Ten West. I still don't think they're out of the Big Ten West race by any means, right? I mean, have we watched Big Ten West football this year? I mean, it is wide open. It is wide open. Sure, Iowa just put up 41 points on Western Michigan, but like Western Michigan is one of the worst teams in the entire country. Was that Western Michigan
Yeah.
that they played? No, it was
Yeah, it was. It was. They're terrible.
yeah. I didn't watch that game. Uh, might go back this week. Won't watch. I need to see more of that offense because I want to see how they fared against Western Michigan. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. But they didn't throw the ball very effectively if you're box score sniping. So, uh, yeah, this Big Ten West is wide open. So, and also this game for Penn State for me, I I feel even better about Penn State because I know that their defense is legit.
Well, they won with their off pitch. It wasn't their stud fastball. They had to win with the changeup as well, which again, like while you're breaking in a new quarterback, like a very talented quarterback, albeit, but a very new in terms of a young guy like Drew Alar, you're gonna have some hiccups. And if with Penn State to do the things they want to do this year and make the college football playoffs, they cannot lose hiccups like this, and they need to be carried by defense. You got to have some explosive plays in the running game. At times, I guess, which they didn't really do, but it's more so Illinois looked legit. That defense was the defense we were looking for. Obviously, the turnovers, like you said, killed them. I didn't like the benching of Luke Altmaier, to be honest. I know he didn't play great and he missed some throws, but I just don't like that. I think he needs the reps, all the reps he can get, and he needs to have the confidence in. Like Paddock didn't play great. I thought he played bad, even though his box score looked pretty good, better than Altmaier's for sure. But those garbage time I did not like that at all. Um, but I was a little disappointed at Penn State because you would like to see them like bury this team. Like it should have been 28-0 in the first quarter, in the first half. Like that's what you like to see with elite teams. Um, but they didn't. They struggled in red zone to capitalize on those turnovers. And obviously credit to them for causing those turnovers, but also like complimentary football, you got to bury those. And if you get turnovers in a big time game like Michigan or Ohio State, you have to turn those into six. It cannot be, settle for field goals or punt the ball, whatever it is, you know. But yeah, I think both these teams, their best football, I think is still ahead of them. I think Altmaier hopefully will continue to get better and better and better. That defense not playing a freak talent like Jalen Daniels or Toledo's quarterback as well, like it's going to help them out. And the Big Ten West, like you said, is wide open. Penn State still can win every game on their schedule, like we talked about earlier. But yeah, they went in on the road in the Big Ten. They got to win, and they covered. Regardless, that's a win. If you're James Franklin, you love that you can be upset about certain things. You love that you can motivate your team and continue to tell them they're not good enough yet. But you got to win. A win is a win, and sometimes that's all you want to do. Go 1-0 this week, and that's what they did.
Minnesota at UNC. Uh, I'll let you take this one.
All right. If you're familiar with Gopher football, like I am, I, it's just frustrating to see the same things go wrong in games you lose, in games you think you should win and compete in. You didn't even compete. You did. You really had chances to win. It was a one score game in the third quarter, and you're driving, and your quarterback goes out with cramping, and then your back quarterback throws an interception on a terrible pass. Like, what is that? And it's nice to see Darius Taylor. I mean, he's your whole offense right now. A true freshman running back is your whole offense. What happens when he goes in the transfer portal next year and gets a huge bag in NIL? You're screwed. I mean, yes, I know it's obviously I'm thinking glass half full here. I'm just frustrated, Minnesota fan, but Ethan Kalikmanis, who I have defended and I'm high on and still high on than everyone else, he sucked. He was terrible. He missed throws. He had open receivers. He caused 3 interceptions, turned the ball over. I know his O-line didn't hold up great in pass pro, but come on, man. The defense gave you turnovers. They turned the ball over on Drake May multiple times, and you had chances to go and capitalize on those, and you didn't. Too many missed mistakes, too many red zone blunders, right? It's the same things all along. And for UNC, right? Credit to you guys. Nate McCollum's awesome. It was nice to see him back and to see him play really well and have good chemistry with Drake May. And the defense, I mean, obviously it's Minnesota, so who knows? They're going to see better offenses and quarterbacks in the ACC for sure at this point with Minnesota's offense. But they played pretty darn well, right? They gave up only 13 points, but it was the pressure on the quarterback. It was forcing bad throws. I mean, you got ran on a little bit, but that's going to happen with your team here. And I don't know, Drake May, he missed some throws, but he made some. And that was the thing is when a play was there to be had, North Carolina made it. And when a play was be there to had from Minnesota, they did not make it. And that's what happened. You had big plays, turning points in the game, and you ended up getting blown out on the road. Very disappointing, very frustrated for Minnesota. Obviously, you get 2 weeks here. If you're Minnesota looking forward, you get Louisville, or I'm so sorry. You get Northwestern and then Louisiana at home for homecoming. But regardless, you gotta be frustrated, especially in a year where the Big Ten West is probably as bad as it's been since it's been created, and everything's right in front of you, and it just doesn't work out. But Darius Taylor, it's good to see him doing well. Sean Tyler only getting 3 carries is interesting, even though Taylor was awesome, and I don't hate that he got all those carries because I
Taylor
think
was
he's awesome.
fantastic. He is a phenomenal football player.
He runs hard. There were some plays where it was third and short or whatever it was, and he would get met, a yard short and then push his way forward. He great vision out of the backfield too a couple times. Well, a couple times last time, one time this game. But Brevin span forward, man. I know you're hurt. I know you're banged up. You were bad, man. You were bad. You had some drops, some other thing. I mean, it's just frustrating. Where was Daniel Jackson? Your
5
wide
targets.
receiver 1, 0 catches. And Nate McCollum, the other side, your wide receiver 1, 15 for 165. I mean, bruh. And
20 targets, by the way. 20 targets. 20.
People are upset about the play calling and the play design. Offense coordinator Greg Harbaugh for Minnesota. And I am too, obviously. I don't know if I'll blame it on him. I think Fleck, man. I love Fleck, and I'll continue to defend him. He's done great things for Minnesota. The fact that I'm even frustrated that Minnesota lost to North Carolina is credit to him and where he's put this program at. philosophically, if you want to win and beat good teams, you got to change the way you run your offense. And Nick Saban did it. He adapted. Obviously, at Alabama, it's a lot easier to be able to change from a ground and pound to a elite offensive weapons, elite line, great quarterback distributor. Um, but you think you have the quarterback to do so and the weapons to do so this year. Why is it so clunky? What's the problem here? And we'll see if they can get it figured out going into Big Ten play. And Cody Lindenberg, and I'm never gonna call anyone out for not playing if they're injured. What's going on there? I know PJ Fleck holds everything close to his vest in terms of injuries. He's very, paranoid about all that stuff, which I get totally. But when that injury came out in fall camp, it was supposed to be like a day-to-day type thing, or maybe like 1 week out, and then the next week he should have been back and he should have played in the Nebraska game from the initial diagnosis. And then it's week 3 and he's still not out there. And we could have used him bad because there were some times where Drake May would just he is so good on 3rd and medium at running for the first down. He is so good at that. He's burned teams so many times throughout his career. But yeah, I think North Carolina can do some damage in the ACC. Obviously, didn't run the ball like they wanted to, but you knew that. You knew that. And Drake May's obviously Drake May. So it was good to see McCollum step up.
I agree. I don't think this game really changed. I mean, in our picks, I had Minnesota covering plus 7.5. It doesn't necessarily change exactly how I feel about either team, though. Does that make sense? Like, I knew Drake May was going to get his, and I think Minnesota just did not capitalize on some opportunities, and they ran the ball well. They ran the ball really well, Minnesota did. So, I mean, Cadillac Manis, yeah, like you said, he was bad. I think I know you're frustrated as a Gopher fan, and I'm sure Gopher fans should be frustrated, but I don't really see these teams a whole lot differently after this week, if that makes sense. Um,
Not too surprising. Not too surprising if you've watched these two teams play this year. Obviously, if you're Minnesota, you were hoping your team to put it together. Obviously, they're not yet ready.
yeah, so I'm not buying North Carolina stock, but I'm not selling Minnesota stock.
A
I'm not
player that
doing
needs
either.
now Minnesota, their defensive line, which was a problem last year, kind of got after Drake May at times. They did a good job. I mean, yes, he able to scamper for some runs, extensive plays, but there were some big time like stops for them, and they did that, and the offense just kind of wasted it at times. But yeah, North Carolina, credit to you guys. You guys won that game. It was not one of those like Minnesota threw it away. No, North Carolina earned that win. Obviously, they're 3-0, looking ahead, and it's a pretty impressive 3-0. You would talk about South Carolina, right? Rivalry game, passionate team, a team. It was neutral site. It was like a game that was um
The two and a
a
half point
team that
line.
just took Georgia. Yeah, it was close. Yeah, it took Georgia to the wire. I guess kind of made them sweat. App State, who we know always gives you troubles. Rivalry game again, and then a team like Minnesota, who's won 8 or 9 games every year the past 3 years, and you kind of manhandled them. You kind of dominated that game from the jump. So credit to North Carolina, 3-0. Mac Brown,
Yeah, and then North Carolina they go to Pitt next week, and then
dub.
they get a bye
Sorry.
before getting Syracuse at home, right? So that's 5-0 right there. And then that's when you get Miami, and then the rest of their schedule after that's pretty manageable. Of course, you go to Clemson, you go to NC State, which is always trouble. But a game like Duke, you get at home, Virginia home, Georgia Tech on the road. But I don't know, man.
Sneaky.
I mean, I took their under 7.5 wins, but this is a very manageable schedule for them for sure. And I think they could prove me wrong for sure. They could prove me wrong. Washington at Michigan State. Boy, you're probably asking, Matthew, what were you doing taking Michigan State plus 16.5? What were you doing? And to answer that question, I will ask you a question. The same one. What was I doing? What was I doing? I watched Noah Kim in the spring game. I watched Michigan State's wide receivers not get separation. I watched their secondary explode chunks and missed tackles. I knew that Michigan State was not an elite football team. My only thought was they'd played well. Noah Kim looked like he was in rhythm, right? Mel Tucker's out. I'm like, maybe this actually motivates these players, to some degree, like it sometimes does with these coaches getting, fired, benched, or suspended, whatever. But this game was an absolute blowout. Michael Penix has made his case for the Heisman thus far. I mean, 713 total yards of offense for Washington. Whoa. I knew this Michigan State secondary was bad, right? And I think people believed that they'd made improvements, but if you were to just look at this game, you would say, no, they did not. But also at the same time, Washington probably has the best set of three wide receivers in the country. I mean, their
Yeah,
numbers
Polk is
one, two, and
awesome.
yeah, Polk is awesome. Their numbers 1, 2, and 3 are probably the best in the country. I mean, if you look at like fantasy perspective, Adunze is a top 10 fantasy receiver. McMillan's a top 10 fantasy receiver, and Polk is a top 20 fantasy receiver. That's in all of college football. There's enough for everyone, right? I think Washington going forward just needs to stay healthy on the offensive line, and this team can cook, man. This team can cook. Going forward for Michigan State, it's hard to bounce back after this one, but I mean, you got some winnable games down the road for those guys. So, but man, it sucks getting blown out at home. It sucks. So luckily for me, I did take in the summer. I had put a double unit on Washington -11 when that line was out there. We've talked about it on the show. If you guys are new tuning in for the first time, we've talked about that before. So that cashed very easily. But for sake of our picks, I took plus 16.5. And looking back on it, that was not an incredible decision. And you took minus 16.5. So, well, tell me how you feel about these two teams after this game.
I mean, I'll start with the winners here with Washington. Obviously, I've been high on them since the summer. We talked about how explosive they are offensively. Obviously, that defensively, it was really nice to see them. I mean, not that Michigan State's going to scare anybody offensively, but to see them really, shut them out for 3 quarters and then, you call it garbage time touchdown right at the end there. And yeah, there was also, I don't think a ton needs to be said about this game. We kind of saw this coming, or at least I don't think anyone's really surprised with how good, if you've been following Washington, how good they are. Michael Penix is awesome. I hope he stays healthy because he is awesome. 27 for 35, 473 yards, 4 TDs, no picks. That is about as good as you're going to see from just about anybody. And we talked about the receivers. How about the running backs, though? Right? Dylan Johnson, 8 for 71. Tybo Rogers, 15 for 75. Right? 5 yards a carry, almost 9 yards a carry. That's awesome. That's what you needed from this Washington offense. That's the only thing you're missing because you lost your starting running back for the year in preseason camp. This is huge. This is what makes you really, really elite in the Pac-12. Washington can win any game they play this year with that offense. They get Cal next week. That's a late game, 9:30 Central Time. That's a 7:30 local time there. But Cal's defense is pretty darn good. And I think Washington could really shred them. And then later, the problem is the tough stretch is the back half of your schedule at USC, Utah, at Oregon State, and finish it off with the Washington playing Washington State, right? Rivalry weekend. It's going to be tough. But if you stay healthy, like you said on the offensive line, this is a really special group. They all came back together. They could have gone to the draft. A lot of them could have transferred. Whatever they want to win big this year, and I think they really will. Michigan State though, Caden Hauser, oh, is he going to be the guy going forward for
No,
them?
no, I'll answer that question. No, Michigan State fans are going to be calling for his name, and I'm going to tell you, Michigan State fans, he's not your answer. Like, it is a quarterback problem that you guys have there. It is. 2 for 4 for 72 yards. Put him in. Noah Kim is better. I can promise you that. I can promise you that. I know Caden Hauser was a highly rated 4-star recruit, but let me tell you, as a guy who's seen the 4-star quarterbacks, the Longview Legends, the Texas Heroes, right? Sometimes they don't work out and you got to move on. And I don't think Caden Hauser is that guy. And I think they will continue to start Noah Cain. If they don't, oops, I'm wrong. Okay. You're just going to see a similar result with Caden Hauser. All right. Whoopsie daisy. So, sorry, Michigan State fans. I know there's a lot going on with you guys, and it is insanely frustrating. And I feel like you guys can be a lot better than you are. And it's frustrating. Believe me. You see the hat that I'm wearing right now? Texas A&M Aggies, believe me, I know that you guys can be better than what you are. And it is frustrating. But you guys are just going to have to take your lumps this year. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So maybe you guys can catch some teams in the Big Ten this year. Maybe. I mean, Washington also just might be an insanely elite team, and I think people are slow on them, possibly. I mean, they have weapons everywhere. Their defenses seem like it's been pretty competent this year. Michael Penix is just like it's like he's on easy mode. It looks like he's on freshman mode in NCAA 14. Like that's what he's on right now. It's crazy. So this also just might be an insanely good team. So pick your heads up, Michigan State fans. Pick your heads up. Keep moving forward.
Yeah, if you're Michigan State too, other than the big three in the Big Ten, you got Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. Every other team in the Big Ten is extremely beatable. We've seen Maryland at times be very vulnerable. That's next week. You can easily win that game at home. Iowa, even though it's at Iowa, obviously they're very hard beat there, but again, winnable game. Your crossovers are Iowa, Minnesota, and Nebraska. Nothing about any of those teams so far leads you to believe you cannot win all those games. It'll be about execution. It'll be about improving this offense and just kind of forgetting this game and moving on, because I don't think anybody really expected you to win this game. And it's tough that you lost it this way, but sometimes you take your lump in week one. It's one game. You went 0-1 this week. Doesn't count for more than one game, right? It's just can't let it compound, right? It can't let it compound into the rest of the year.
Tennessee at Florida.
This was weird. Was it not a weird game? I just thought it was weird. I mean, that second quarter was big time, obviously, for Florida. Well, they scored 26 straight unanswered, right after the opening
first half
touchdown
was it was utter annihilation. It is what it was. Joe Milton, he just looked meh, And honestly, Graham Mertz, Graham Mertz did fine, but he didn't have to do much, right? Florida ran the ball really well. We talked about like Florida's actually able to run the ball in Tennessee, that this could be a problem. In terms of our picks, I did pick Florida's +6. I also picked them to win for this upset game. For the reason, well, I thought also more like it's possible, right? If they get into a dogfight, that Joe Milton's going to make the mistakes, right? And it's not so much that Joe Milton like made the mistakes, if catch my drift there, but it's like he didn't make the plays either. And they didn't really run the ball effectively, and their defense was not anywhere to be found. So I'm not saying like I think a lot of people are back on the Florida, quote unquote hype train. I'm not ready to get all the way back there yet. I think the Swamp is just a really tough place to play. I think Tennessee's not all that's meant or all that it's, shaped up to be. I think when do you send in Nico at any point this season? If you continue to struggle with Joe Milton, or you're just not getting the production that you thought you would get out of him, do you go to what point do you go to Nico? I mean, is that an overreaction? That might be an overreaction to say that, but like these last 3 games, right? These last 3 games, they've come out desperately slow. Virginia, desperately slow. Austin, PA, desperately slow. Florida, desperately slow. But guess what? This team capitalized on that. And then all of a sudden you're down. And then all of a sudden Joe Milton has too much on his shoulders. He can't lift the entire world. but he can throw it 90 yards, right? So you know, I don't think Joe Milton's a bad quarterback. It's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say like NFL scouts should think we're watching this game. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I do. I will say, I don't think you can blame it all on him. But in terms of the mistake he made, I mean, I know it was tough. That interception wasn't necessarily his fault, right? He got hit as he threw.
Yeah,
It was a duck,
it was weird.
but
It was a weird pick, but
it
yeah,
was weird. Yeah, but he also had a guy wide open, streaking across the field, and he tried to throw the deep ball. He had a guy streaking wide open, and I'm not going to pretend like I know the exact reads of each play that Tennessee has, but again, that's frustrating for Tennessee and Joe Milton. And then that was 7. It was 12-7 at that point. You could have gone down and scored and taken the lead, or at least kicked a field goal and stopped the bleeding. Instead, Florida 3 plays later, boom in the end zone, and then you went 3-and-out, and then you gave up another touchdown, and then it was 26-7, and the game was over. And Florida hadn't even sent out their punter yet. So like that was the thing. In an environment like you said, like the swamp, that's a
yeah,
recipe for disaster. They had no chance to win that game in the second half. But a huge for Billy Napier, regardless of how good you actually think Tennessee is or how good you actually think Florida is this year. You got a big time win in the swamp. You beat the number 11 team in the country, right? They're obviously way too high for that. And they didn't play like it. But for some guy who's caught a lot of heat, right? First performance on the field, and then prior to this year, recruiting wise, this is big time momentum. This is big time momentum. After the dud you laid at Utah, I get it. Not an easy place to play. Utah is really damn good. You're obviously not that good yet. This was big time. This was awesome. And I was impressed with Graham Mertz. I thought he made a couple of really nice throws under pressure, took some hits. He's not anywhere what people think he's gonna be. He's not gonna be Joe Burrow right from here on out. But yeah, they can win some games in the SEC East with Graham Mertz. And that running game, which they finally got going, which they didn't do against Utah. ETN is awesome. Montreal Johnson, awesome as well. Even though he didn't play great, but those guys are pretty darn talented. ETN played great, but Montreal didn't have the numbers quite that ETN did. What's wrong with
yeah.
Tennessee though? What's their problem? Is it was Hendon Hooker that good?
I think,
The
well,
tackles they lost, were they like I mean, Florida got pressure under Milton, I thought,
I
but
do think losing Alex Golish to South
yeah,
Florida, I think as much as I wanted to think that this was Josh Heupel's offense, and I guess it kind of is, but like I think having a guy like him in that room, I think it's also kind of having an impact a little bit here. But I don't know. I was really high on Joe Milton. I was very close to drafting him in our like fantasy quarterback draft that we had. Said I went with Carson Beck, who himself is not playing insane, but he is doing fine, winning ball games. But yeah, this is a weird game. I thought Florida played awesome. I thought they did what they needed to do. They executed. But I think if they played this game again in Neyland Stadium, I don't know that I would pick Florida at all. But Florida did what they needed to do, and they did it early, right? And maybe they were in a little bit of cruise control there in the second half, but guess what? They got the job done. So huge win, like you said, from Billy Napier recruiting. I tweeted out after the game. If you're not following us, follow us on the Redshirt Sophomore on Twitter. The biggest winner of this game was Florida recruiting, for sure. I think. Obviously Billy
2024
Napier.
Florida,
Yeah,
next year's
2024.
team.
Yes, definitely. Well, yeah, and even like some, you had a couple guys decommit. I mean, this past couple of weeks. So I think maybe 2 guys. Not that those guys were like a giant deal, but it definitely felt like the momentum had kind of stopped there with after these first 2 weeks. But yeah, keep it going, Florida. Keep it going. So, Graham Mertz, I know we dragged your name underneath the mud, and maybe we weren't right to do that. I mean, we're not wrong that, like, so wrong that Graham Mertz is playing like at an elite level, but he's impressed me because my expectations for him were pretty low. So he has
Yep.
impressed me though. So I'd say Keep it going, Florida. Keep it going, Florida.
Yeah, I will say, looking ahead for Tennessee, as a guy that took their under, right? I pounded the under in our SEC breakdown video. This feels great. I mean, I did not consider that this was going to be one of those games for them to really lose, but their crossover games are Alabama and A&M, and I know neither of those teams have really impressed you, but those are not easy wins at all. And then you get UTSA next week. I know Tennessee's not going to be very pumped up to kind of get back out there and avenge this game, but UTSA is not a terrible team at all. They've had success the past couple of years in the CUSA or in the American now. Um, but yeah, I mean, Tennessee, if they're not careful, they can end up 6-6, 7-5. Um, but as for Florida, you got a chance. And I didn't think they were going to make a bowl game this year, but you get Charlotte, right? You get at Kentucky, tough game, Vanderbilt, South Carolina before you head to Georgia. And after you get to Georgia, your schedule really picks up. You got to play Georgia, LSU, and Florida State. Not in consecutive weeks, but just in the back half of your schedule. So to pick up this win here after losing to Utah, big time, very big time for them. Happy for Billy Napier.
Yeah, Tennessee, UTSA next week. If Frank Harris is healthy, I think UTSA can win that game. If he's not healthy, I don't think they have a chance to win that ball game, right? Although UTSA has been shown that they can kind of run the ball a little bit, but it was glaring when they played Army. What was that, Friday night?
Yeah.
Friday night when they played. It was glaringly obvious that offense was a lot different without Frank Harris.
Agreed. And they beat a Texas State team, and this is not a Texas State or a UTSA segment here, but they beat a Texas State team that's done pretty damn good this year so far. They beat Baylor. They put up 70 something on Jackson State. TJ Finley, Dog, Malik Hornsby, two former SEC West guys for Texas State there. So happy for those guys, the Bobcats over in the CUSA. But yeah.
BYU at Arkansas. This was when we talked about, some of the other games were before weird. I think this was like probably one of the weirdest games because I mean, if you're box score sniping right now, you're like, oh, Arkansas outgained BYU 423 to 281, right? In your head, like, oh, so Arkansas probably won by 14, maybe 10, maybe BYU scored a late touchdown. Arkansas just ran the ball. Well, that is not what happened. Some key turnovers and some explosive plays for BYU put them in this ball game late, and they were able to capitalize and find a way to win on the road. Very impressive win from BYU to just be able to go into Fayetteville like that and come out with the win as 10-point underdogs. So I'm not going to say Keaton Slovis was an incredible quarterback. I mean, he was fine. He just didn't lose the football game, right? And we had said on our preview, right? The reason why I took Arkansas to win, BYU to cover. So I was right about BYU covering. But the reason why I took Arkansas to win was because, look, if you're going to give me two teams that are struggling to run the ball right now and two teams that still have question marks on defense and offensive line, I'm going to take the better quarterback. And I took KJ Jefferson on that. And look, he was okay, kind of running for his life a little bit back there, but he turned the ball over late, and it costed them pretty badly. They're definitely missing Rocket Sanders, though, for sure. They ran the ball okay, but like not to the level that I think that they wanted to run the ball at. So, and yeah, BYU wasn't even running the ball that well. They weren't throwing the ball particularly amazing. They just found a way to win this game. Oh, Kalani Sitake. Gosh. This BYU Cougar team's got to be fired up about this. One of the probably a big time surprise 3-0 team to start the year. One of those surprise teams, I think, that you're like, whoa, BYU's 3-0. Well, okay. All right. But now it's like, okay, let's see what happens when they get into Big 12 play. But I mean, they just went to Arkansas and won. So yeah, and especially how the rest of the SEC has looked. That Missouri win against Kansas State is starting to look a little bit more important for strength of schedule purposes for the SEC. They're looking at playoff picture down the line. But yeah, I thought, look, Keaton Slovis might be the guy for BYU just because I think he's just going to be almost just enough. I don't know. I don't know. They're finding ways to win ball games, so I'm not gonna knock them. Gosh, give me the Cougs, man. Give me the Cougs.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised as this game was playing out. Arkansas kind of jumped on them, right? They had the quick touchdown with AJ Green, 55 yards. And other than that, like you said, the rushing game wasn't all that special. And what a rushing game does for you is it lets you be consistent, right? Like with a quarterback like KJ Jefferson, who is not by any terms an elite throw of the football. Playmaker, yes, elite, absolutely. But a throw of the football, he's not down and down consistent in terms of moving the ball throughout the game. And that's when it leads to turnovers, especially when you're offensive tackles. I thought kind of got bullied. Wouldn't say bullied, but in terms of like KJ Jefferson did not have it easy, especially when they were trying to throw the football. They could not
Yeah,
in the fourth quarter. But right, you jumped out 14-0. You had a long touchdown. You had the punt return for a touchdown. And then BYU had 3-and-out. And you had a chance to really put the game away. And then you went 4-and-out. And it was really 3-and-out, actually. And then BYU had the big touchdown. And then you let them back in the game. And then even in the second half, you were up 10 points. You were driving. You were at midfield. It was 4th-and-1, and you didn't get it with KJ Jefferson. You took it out of his hands, and he didn't get it. And so that was something you could point out in the second half where it's like, as an Arkansas fan, you were upset 31. I'm sorry, you're up 31-21, and you lost 38-31 because you couldn't score in the fourth quarter or put the game away when you needed to. Obviously, looking ahead, Arkansas got some winnable games in the SEC West, obviously, some losable games for sure that come with that. But yeah, I was surprised. I mean, I took Arkansas to cover. Um, I still think I would take them to win again if they play another game like that, especially if Raheem Sanders is healthy. Um, but yeah, credit to BYU. I'm not going to take this win over them. They had a couple big plays. They fought back after going down early on the road at night in Fayetteville, and BYU was the better team today, honestly. For 4 quarters, they played better football than Arkansas did.
little backyard brawl. Wow, talk about brawl. I mean, this game was kind of won in the trenches. It was like, who is gonna play? Who's not gonna lose this game? Is what it came down to. And Phil Dracovic said, "Let me lose this game."
Oh,
He said, "I'm gonna lose this game." Both of us had West Virginia in this game. And my one regret I talked about earlier being that I did not actually put any action on West Virginia for Dawson's Diner. But yeah, I mean, these are two teams that just kind of slugged it out, man. And it actually was an entertaining game to watch just because like it just felt like it was just really bruisery, like just nitty gritty, just backyard football. It was awesome. I actually enjoyed watching this game. I'm sure a lot of people disagree with that statement right there, but uh, look, West Virginia's 2-1 right now. What? What? And Neil Brown lives to see another day.
I can't believe that. And the thing is real quick, not to rain on the parade of any West Virginia fans, and you should be celebrating. You won a rivalry game. You're 2-1, right, for the first time, right? And maybe you didn't think you were gonna be 2-1, but it could really just be that Pittsburgh is terrible, and right now they are playing bad football offensively, bad football, and I'm happy West Virginia won because right last year and maybe the year before that they lose games like these or they should have won, and they're playing a team that's not playing good football at all. But you got to win at home by 11 points. That's pretty awesome. Power five football
Yeah,
team.
I did say in the preview, like, this was me. This is a reenaction of what I said. If you think they're going to take out Phil Dracovic, right? What they're going to do is they're going to put the best guy in the game, right? It's going to give him the best chance to win this football game, right? And that guy is Phil Dracovic. I am here to tell you what is that? 4 days later, that my opinion has changed drastically. That it feels like that these bad games are compiling, and it's not just, oh, they made plays, or oh, that was an off day for Phil Dracovic. Oh, he's just settling into the offense. I think there might be a real problem there. This West Virginia secondary is awful. It is terrible. Now, shout out Beanie Bishop, right? Getting another interception, big time moments. But this secondary is horrendous. It is a bad West Virginia secondary. You threw 81 yards. Oh my gosh. Pitt fans, like, let's hear it, man. Sound off, man. Like, I get it, dude. This blows. This blows. You should not be losing to West Virginia in this game, in this setting, I don't think. With this West Virginia team playing. But man, dude. Shout out West Virginia. The game plan was, we're just not gonna throw the football because we don't want to make the mistakes to lose the game. Shout out Neil Brown for making those adjustments, just deciding, yeah, we're not gonna throw the ball. We're not gonna throw the ball at all. Yeah, goodness, man. Phil Dracovic, man, that was abysmal. That was abysmal. So Pitt fans, I understand now. I finally get it. When you say, yeah, Phil Dracovic, I've seen enough. This is not the guy. This is not our guy. So I get it. So I don't know. Who do you guys send in next? Christian Velo? Is that how you say his name? I don't know. Maybe he's a guy. I have zero clue. I have no idea, man. I don't know what's wrong. Rodney Hammond isn't even getting his either. It feels like there's a lot going on with this Pitt team. And I think a lot of people were high on this Pitt team. Oh, look, they actually got a quarterback now. Yikes, dude. Yikes. This offensive line's not playing great. This wide receiving core, I think, actually has upside. They're just not getting utilized at all because they can't get utilized. So, but again, shout out West Virginia, like making the call. We're not going to throw the ball. We're just going to hand the ball off to CJ Donaldson 20 sometimes. Anderson, or CJ Anderson, what he got? 18 carries. Donaldson got 18 carries. Anderson got 19 carries. Just run the ball and find a way to win the game. And yeah, honestly, like, you could look at the outcome of this game and you can look at those total yards and say, okay, well, West Virginia's not a very good team, but I think Neil Brown outcoached Pat Narduzzi this game. I think he did. So
For sure.
Credit to West Virginia. Credit Neil Brown for saving his job one more week.
I want to pat myself on the back here. Back in the summer when I took CJ Donaldson in our, running back fantasy draft per conference, I got one player to pick, one running back in the Big 12 to pick. And I took CJ Donaldson, and it was exactly like this is what I envisioned. Is they didn't want to throw the ball at all. They lean into the strength of their team, their offensive line, and Donaldson's a good physical runner. He was actually really good. He had one mistake with the penalty on the touchdown. Who cares? He was an excited player. He was awesome. And Anderson had some nice plays as well behind him. So yeah, something's wrong with this Pitt offense. And that defense is going to start getting frustrated because of the lack of support they're getting on the offense side of the ball. That one interception at the end of the first half was horrible. And we've been a Phil Jerkovich defender because of the level of difficulty he's had at Boston College.
A mild defender. I'll say a mild defender.
Yes, but we were both excited when he came to,
because everyone was.
Yeah, and that terrible. And they go North Carolina. They got to go to Virginia Tech, Louisville, at Wake Forest. I mean, they're circling right now. You're circling Boston College in week 12. Yeah. That's your game. You gotta win. I mean, you could go 3-9 this year. That's not out of the realm of possibilities. And just for shits and gigs, you throw Notre Dame there in the middle of the season as a non-conference game. West Virginia, on the other hand, is in a Big 12 that, other than Texas, who you avoid, I mean, Oklahoma, fine, loss, whatever. A lot of other very winnable games. Now, yes, at Houston, winnable game on the road. UCF, tough game. BYU obviously played well this past weekend, but it's nice to see Neil Brown do what it takes to win, and to see that game plan executed to what the standard what they needed. This game, I mean, yes, it was ugly to watch, but I loved watching it. I thought it was a very fun, entertaining game for a football fan, for diehards like you and we are, Um, 60 yards passing, and you win by 11. I mean, that's awesome. Garrett Green got hurt, obviously, so I'm sure that changed a little bit of the dynamic of what your maybe your game plan was going to be. But
Definitely.
Marcucci, is it Marcholi, Marcucci, whatever. Nico, he actually played pretty well in terms of number. Was 6 for 9, 6 yards and touchdown. Didn't make any big mistakes. Leaned into that run game. Did enough to win, and it's awesome. Neil Brown, go Neil Brown. The Fighting Mountaineers over there in West Virginia.
Thank you guys for tuning in. That's the end of our recap. We just previewed 9 games, and these recaps are about recapping those 9 games. I know there's a lot of other games, a lot of other teams to cover out here. If you guys want us to cover any specific teams, send us an email, the Redshirt Sophomore at gmail.com. That's our email. We respond to it. We see emails. Right? If you want to follow us on Twitter at the Redshirt Soft, just at the Redshirt Soft. Message us on there too. Tweet at us. Let us know, hey, we want to see this team. Why aren't you covering this team? Well, look, we don't know what y'all want to hear. We talk about what we want to talk about, but for the most part, we're willing to compromise to a degree. So I'm excited. This week 4 slate is going to be awesome, right? Awesome. You guys thought week 2 slate was insane? Oh, we got games. We got games. We're probably looking at previewing between 9, 10, maybe 11 games. Still got to sort that out, but yeah, we're going to be posting that video on Thursday morning. So definitely come hang out with us. But yeah, thanks again, guys. And we will catch you in the next one.